You're listening to the Chatting in the City podcast. This podcast is an initiative from the V-TRaC Lab, also known as the Vulnerability, Trauma, Resilience, and Culture Laboratory here at the University of Ottawa. The goal of the lab is to research and explore mental health in Black communities. The podcast is a part of the Become Ill project financed by the Public Health Agency of Canada. My name is Leslie, and I'm the social mobilizer here at the V-TRaC, and I'm also here with today Mika Jean-Baptiste, who's the second social mobilizer here at the V-TRaC. In today's episode, we're going to discuss the international student experience and their mental health. We are here today with Chi. Round of applause for Chi. And Chi, do you want to introduce yourself, where you're from, what you're studying here at the university? Tell us just about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Chienye Onyeagucha, or Chi for short. I am a second-year international student in the Honors Bachelor of Health Science program at the University of Ottawa, and I am from Nigeria.
Awesome, Chi. Thank you so much. So we kind of want you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your home, your favorite food, and what you miss most.
Well, originally, if we're going down to tribes, I am from Imo State, which is in the southeastern part of Nigeria. But I grew up in the federal capital city, which was Abuja, which is somewhere like north central. So I technically consider Abuja my home as opposed to Imo State, but I use for interchangeably. So Abuja is one of the larger cities, but it's not the largest one. It's people refer to it usually as the business center because where we have Lagos as kind of like our party city, Abuja is kind of where people like do business and handle finance because we have our federal government and their like offices, a lot of them there in Abuja. So it's kind of, labeled as a more serious or businessy place, if that makes sense. I'm not going to say it's really fun. I feel like it's more about growing up there, and like the more you're there, the more you're able to make it fun for yourself. What's my favorite food is? Okay, I think my favorite Nigerian food is fresh fish soup, or I think some people call it fisherman soup. And it's literally just like a bunch of seafood and fish made like into soup, like how Nigerians make soup. And you eat it with like any kind of swallow, like pounded yam or gari or whatnot. And what I miss about home, I think personally, what I miss about home the most is the people and the energy, because I have definitely noticed that the people in Canada are nothing at all like the people back in Nigeria. Like they're not as outgoing, no offense, but they're not as fun. Like even I feel like Canada is a bit more gloomy to me. Like Nigeria, like even when bad things are happening in Nigeria, we always find a way to always be happy and have fun and smiling. But I feel like if something bad was happening here, or when something bad is happening, like the atmosphere around this kind of changes. And like, so definitely if there's one thing I miss about Nigeria, it's going to be the people and like the attitude, towards each other.
That's so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing all of your experience a little bit from back home. And about that, what made you choose Ottawa and like the University of Ottawa? Why did you decide to come study here?
So it's actually a very funny story, but then my sister came to Canada first and she lives in Toronto. And so how we are set up in Nigeria, like, so we have states and then cities inside states, right? And we have about 36 states. So when I asked my sister where she was like, oh, she's in Toronto, and that Toronto is a city. And then it's in Ontario, which is like a province. So I was like, okay, if cities are in the province and the province are kind of like states. So she was like, oh, Toronto and Ottawa, they're both cities in Ontario. So I was like, okay, how far apart can two cities be in the same state, right? And I didn't want to go to U of T because it was like too terribly expensive for international students. And I didn't want to go to York, which was where my sister went to school. So I was like, okay, I might as well just go to U Ottawa. And I think the reason why I picked U Ottawa in Ottawa is just because I was typically just aiming for the better ranked schools, just because I feel like the better school you go into, it helps, it's just makes it better getting into, makes it easier, I guess, getting into more schools. So that's why I picked U Ottawa and Ottawa.
Yeah, for sure. And if you guys didn't know, Miss Chi is a future medical professional. So we're very excited to see that coming. But how have you adapted to being away from home?
I feel like definitely compared to a lot other international students, I'm definitely, like, when it comes to adapting, I'm definitely very stubborn. Like, I feel in terms of maybe getting around transportation, I've definitely adapted to the busing and the, finding my way around, and, how living here, like drinking water from the taps and such and such. But when it comes to interacting with people, I definitely have tried my best not to assimilate, just because I feel like I'm already so far away from home. And then me trying to, switch myself to be more like the people here is just more parts of me that I'm going to be losing. So I was like, this small part I can retain while I'm here, I'll just like to keep that for myself. So I feel like I'm definitely very stubborn when it comes to adapting. Like, even in 10 years, I don't think I'm going to ever lose my accent, even if I were to stay here for 10 years, or I would ever like the food here more than there. So I definitely feel like that one is going to be definitely a tough one.
That's so interesting because I also feel the same. I'm also an international student, as I was telling you. And it's like, even though I'm spending most of my time now, like, the way in Canada, I'm always still attached to, like, back home and, like, my friends, my family, and just my life here in Belgium. But about that, what have been the best and the worst moments so far from being away from home? So personally, I feel like the worst thing about, like, being away from home for me is, like, the time difference. So it's really hard for me to connect with my friends and my family because we are in such different time zones. So it can be quite tricky, but I also love the fact that I'm more independent and I get to do my own thing and just explore my passion and everything. So we just want to know for you, what was the best and worst moment from being away from home?
Um, For the best moment, because I think that one is easier, definitely is the independency, because I don't live with my parents here and I can't do anything I want, or not anything, but then I can do most things, and then I can go and like come. So I really do like the independency. I feel like the worst thing about, will I say, being here for me, or my worst moments being away from home. Like I said, I feel like the people here are very different. So I did have like a situation where I went out with friends, and then long story short, like they all ended up at one table, like we're like 8 of us, and then 7 of them were on one table, and then they couldn't find a space for me. So I had to go sit on another table. And I was like, this is all my friends on one table and just me on another table. And like none of them saw a problem with that. And I feel like that was really one of the worst moments, because it really stuck with me. Like, this happened in maybe March, but it's really stuck with me because in Nigeria, I feel like we're very closely like knit, like especially friends. Like, it would surprise you just how close you would see two friends be, like from boarding school, like high school students can be really close together. So I feel like coming from that kind of place where everyone is just really tight, like even with people you don't really know, sometimes you can, especially when you're thrown into boarding school situations and living together, you find yourself just being kind of closely knit or bonding over different things. So I feel like coming from that kind of environment and those kind of friendships, and then entering a friendship here and having that kind of thing happen to me, I was just really shocked. I was like, oh, so that's how they do things here. I don't know if I really want to be here, if I'm going to have to be going through that. And yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like kind of, if I'm right, like Nigeria is more so like more collectivist, like everybody's together, you have community, you have a lot of people around you, and then you came here and it's really like individualistic and it just the culture shock of it all. Yeah. I can
Mm.
relate too, because I think that it's exactly the same way in the Caribbean. Like people are around you all the time and like your neighbors are everywhere, but you know each other. You walk down the street and you're saying hi to people. And then you come here and it's just like a completely different vibe. But that is insane. One of my least favorite things about Canada for sure. But what is mental health to you?
Mm, mental health. Okay, so if you were to just say mental health, I would just say it was like if someone's, state of, I don't want to use the word mental to describe it, but then their mental state of well-being, like just how okay, maybe a person feels, not just like physically, but then emotionally and psychologically. Their psychological and emotional like state of being.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Oh, I disappeared. Okay, came back. But the next question is, growing up, what was your perception of mental health and mental illness? Was it something that you used to talk about with your parents or your loved one, or was it something that was more taboo? How did you think about those two concepts, so mental health and mental illness, or was it something that you discussed in your high school, for example?
Um, okay, so regarding the question when you asked if it was discussed in like schools growing up, no. But I do remember there was an instance, and my friend, she's okay with me sharing this information, by the way. But then there was an instance of someone I know, like when I was in boarding school, trying to, take her own life. And then we're always aware of it. But like I said, I feel like Nigerians tend to just be more happy people, at least on like the outside, like they present as happy people more. So you don't really see things like that happening a lot. So we're aware of it, at least for me. And I know my friends that will grow up, we're aware of it. But it wasn't really a common occurrence that we saw happening. In regards to my direct family, there wasn't any particular shame about it or anything like that. But like as I said, we didn't really see it. So it was never actually just spoken about at all. Like it was just something that we knew was there, but didn't really have much regards to it because I guess none of us ever got bullied. None of us ever, I mean, um, growing up like bigger than most kids, you will get made fun of a lot. But then for me, didn't really depress me. Like obviously it made me feel bad, but then it never, luckily, moved me to the point of depression. Or maybe even if I was, my mind just didn't, you know, realize that, oh, this is what this is. I'm actually depressed. So I just feel like it's just something that's not spoken about at all. I wouldn't call it taboo. I would just say it's not really known.
Okay. And then I guess following that, like, has your perception of mental health changed since coming to Canada? Or has it changed a little bit as you've grown older or anything like that?
Yeah. Okay. So it hasn't changed since I got to Canada, just because in like maybe 2018, or 2019, like when more Nigerians started becoming more involved in social activism and social media, we ended up finding out, well, our generation, we ended up finding out these things ourselves. So we're able to, do our own research. And I feel like a great majority of us, or all of us who do have access to the internet and so whatnot, we do have this idea and understanding of what exactly mental health is. We understand depression and tons of other, mental illnesses. So when I came to Canada, which was just last year, I already had all this knowledge. So it hadn't really changed since getting here.
And I guess following that intervention, how do you feel your background influence how you feel about mental health, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
For example, I know that personally, like both of my parents are immigrants from Cameroon. And growing up, I didn't really talk about mental health, like I want to say, which is kind of ironic because I'm studying enough psychology. But it's just, I think, especially in Cameroon, we tend to think that people don't really suffer from mental illnesses, and that doesn't really exist. That's more something that's from the Occident and not necessarily something that we see in Africa. And like there's a lot of things that are belief that you should refer and like address any problem to God and like the religion. And that doesn't necessarily sometimes help you go through like the different mental health problem that you may have and mental health issues. And so I feel like that also influenced how like growing up I was thinking of mental health. But obviously now after 4 years studying psychology and like doing the work that I'm doing here at the V-TRaC, I've learned that obviously it's really important to talk about mental health and to raise awareness about around mental health, especially in Black communities. So that's kind of like what the question is about, like just about your background, and if for you it was the same thing or was it something different?
So yeah, definitely in my direct family, like I mentioned before, it just wasn't ever really spoken about. I can't say for sure how my parents' reaction to it would have been because we never brought it up in the first place, and they didn't really. My parents are not like extremists. Like I wouldn't say they are chill parents or cool parents because they're definitely more strict. But when it comes to like personal beliefs or stuff like that, they've never been people to push anything or anyone. Like they are more like, okay, this is what's right and this is what's wrong. Go your own path, like choose what you want to do, be who you want to be. So they were those kind of people. So I never had anything like, oh, this is something we do here, this is something we don't do here. But I do know that growing up in Nigeria, because I didn't used to see exhibitions of like mental health issues around like that. But I would sometimes hear about it on the internet. I asked for at some point, like in my journey of like, finding out what exactly mental health issues were. I did at some point think I was like, okay, maybe this is something that only happens in the West because I don't see this around anywhere here. And then that's also got me to think, okay, maybe like Nigerians are just happier, or maybe we're just so. When the incident of my friend occurred, I did have like this eye-opening moment. So I said that yeah, this happens here too. It's just probably it's not as talked about as it should be.
And so I guess then following that whole point, what are your perceptions of mental health during the school year? Like, how do you think about your own mental health? Are there like peaks and stuff throughout the year?
Yeah. During the school year I feel like it was definitely a challenge, especially as an international student, because it has its ups and downs. For me especially, it had a lot of ups and downs because making friends, I was like very excited. I have friends here, and just because of how my perception of friendship back home, it's kind of what I was expecting. So after the incident, with me being left alone and my friends weren't really feeling it's like how I expected they would. I kind of wanted to pull away from them because I was thinking, okay, maybe these are not the kind of people, that I would want in my life and whatnot. And then I was kind of pulling away, but then I decided to go back and try again because I guess no friendship is like built in a day. And I was like, okay, yeah, we all have to get to know each other. And over like during the school year, during first semester, second semester, like we're always close. Like even though school wasn't fully in person, but then we would always be together. We would always go to school together. I remember there was this class that just one person had. It was a chemistry class, but then all of us would go for the class. So we're that close. And then I thought, okay, yeah, we're friends, like we've become close. But then after the school year went out in April, over the summer, the whole 4 months, maybe 5 month long summer break, no one was talking like in the group chats we had, no one was doing anything. And I was like, if they made it seem like, okay, we're just friends for school, like we're just school friends. And then when everything is done, they'll go back to their old friends. And then when school starts back, they come back to us. And I was like, really thinking about it, I was like, is this the kind of friendship I want to be in? And then I had this eye-opening moment that like, no matter how many friends you make here as an international student, you're never really um how life races, but then you always feel like you're never really friends with them just because they already have friends that they had, and then the friends are right here with them, but then your friends are right there, and you're just feeling like, oh, even if no matter how close you think you are to someone, they may already, like if you consider someone your best friend, they already have a best friend here. It's just a very eye-opening situation. It makes you very sad. Um, so I feel like, and also the whole issues with school, being a first year, school is hard, just so many things piled upon. So definitely, I feel like my mental health in first year was a bit shaky. Like it was just up and then down and up and down. But then, yeah.
I can definitely relate to that. And I feel like, as you say, it's definitely harder for international students, especially because at first you also have to adapt to like a new country, a new way of living. You don't necessarily have people that you already know in the country. Like personally, I don't really know anyone here. So I feel like it's already really hard, and it's even harder then to make friends and to sustain those friendship like after the school year. So you're completely right. And actually, that's very linked to the next question, which is, do you feel that mental health is accurately addressed here at the University of Ottawa? Or is there something else that maybe we can do to improve the mental health, especially for international students?
Um, I in regards to just mental health at school, I would say because at the time I was having these problems, I don't understand that, oh, school wasn't in session and they probably have some things that would have been able to help now. Like I know the peer help center is going to be up and running as of January. And I know because I volunteered to be a part of this because I was like, okay, yeah, I definitely don't want anybody going through what I've been through. And so I feel like a lot of the issues that I have faced were not directly a problem of the school, but more a problem of situation. Like we couldn't have people in closed spaces, couldn't have people in certain positions, couldn't have people doing too many things just because of COVID. But then I would actually have this faith that once COVID lets up and things start to get back to normal, that it might improve a lot. So if you wanted to ask me this question, maybe in 8 months, I will answer again. I'll tell you, I'll give you my feedback, how I think things have changed now that it's open. But I feel like in regards to mental health for international students, I don't want to say the school is not trying because I do see they are trying their best. But I also feel like the people who they are asking opinions from to help, and not the people who can help. Like, let me clarify. Like, they want to appeal to international students, but they don't have international students on the team to help them, to let them know what would, work. For example, I know the international office, they have all sorts of things. Like, they'll have seminars, and they'll have get-togethers and many stuff that they see. But then, no, how I'm thinking of a right way to say this, but for me personally, as an international student, when I first came to Canada, I didn't want to see, I wasn't looking to be put with other international students, because non-African international students, even non-West African international students, may not be able to relate to me the way I wanted. Because to every international student, to me, sorry, I have to rephrase this. To me, as an international student, it's not just Canadians that like the foreigners to me, like also other international, anybody I'm not familiar with, to me, it's just like a foreign person. So when they have these more general get-togethers, and they're like, oh, come and meet your fellow international students, it doesn't really provide this like oneness, because we don't really, there's nothing we have to relate about. So I remember bringing this up with the international house or the international office. I was like, if every international student, because I know at school we have a lot of cultural clubs, if when an international student joins school, they could just get a link to maybe the club's website, or a link to, or a list with all cultural clubs. I feel like it would have done a lot of people a lot, like a whole lot of good. Because we get, as international students, we get so many emails from school talking about how to open a bank account, inviting us to come for this and come for that. And I feel like just one single message saying, hi, we know you're new here, and here are some, people just like you, to make you feel at home. Because I feel like the easing in to a country is a very gradual process. Like, it's a lot easier when you have a family, when you have friends. But for a lot of international students that come on the way here by themselves, they have nobody to help them ease into it. So I feel like just letting them know, telling them, hey, we have these people, they're from your country, they'll have similar, like they think like you, talk like you. It would help people, would I say, get used to Canada faster, because we'll be hearing it from people who maybe have gone through similar situations, and then we might use their coping mechanisms, to get used to it. Because hearing something from somebody, maybe I don't know, but I feel like, okay, this person has been in a similar situation to me. I feel like, okay, yeah, this person knows how I feel. This person might even know how I would go about the situation. So I would rather listen to this person who can relate to me, as opposed to someone else. And it's not even supposed to be in a way of, oh, I would rather listen to this person than this person. It's just that when you meet someone, as an international student, when you meet someone that is from a place you've grown up in, and that place is all you've ever known, it just helps you, like, creates this sense of familiarity. You end up finding yourself this person, because a lot of time you still like long for home, right? So just this one person, few people that, to help you, remind you of home, I feel like it would be great help. So to, summarize, I feel like mental health in general for school, for students, I feel like they are trying their best. But for international students, I haven't really felt any effort at all being put into their mental health.
It sounds like they're really lacking like cultural competency, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. Like if in that sense, like if like they're addressing international students as one big student group, and they're not like, yeah, individualizing. I agree. They should do that. And I remember you were complaining to me about the thing at iHouse and how they didn't send. And it really is like an easy fix just to send an email with all the cultural clubs. It's available and stuff like that. So yeah. I honestly have never thought about that before, but that is so true. Okay, so we'll end it off with this last question. We'll forget about the other question because you already addressed that. But what are your coping mechanisms in the school year and in general?
Okay, so for coping mechanisms for me, luckily for me, I did have, like, I have my sister, and even though she's in Toronto, and Toronto is like 4 or 5 hours away, like I have phones and devices and I can always talk to her. But then it was still lonely with my sister who was so far away. So I feel like a lot of the times, coping mechanisms that are not directly around you can be very hard to actually help you cope. So me as a person, what I would have liked to do, because again, I'm somebody who everything I do, like before I do anything or say anything, I always like to think about it, and I like to say, if I was in this position, like if I was in the other person's position, what would I like to be done to me, or what would I like to be said to me? So I always think, like, what would I have really liked as a Nigerian international student Canada, my first year, to help me cope here. And then the only thing my mind keeps coming back to is other Nigerians. Like, I feel like other Nigerians that have made it fun for me. I would have gone to parties, I would have done this, I would have done that. And in that sense, I was able to, like, start up a club, a culture club, Nigerian Student Association. Yeah. And I feel, well, I hope that it will be a way to provide this direct coping mechanisms that a lot of Nigerian international students will need. Like that's only my goal. I can't say for sure. Some people need need to be alone, even though I never advise being alone. I feel like sometimes you always need people around you, but then we all cope in different ways, right? But I just want, even if it's for one person who would need this as a coping mechanism, just because I know I as a person would have needed this to help me. I feel like if I had this, or I had access to this, I would have definitely been able to cheer myself up more during the school year. So that is why I'm starting this. So to summarize again, my only form of coping mechanism at the time was my sister. But now I have my sister and I have the NSA and I have my friends, because I do have the good friends. They will always be the good friends. So I have some really, really great friends, and I'm very appreciative for them, both the ones here in Canada and the ones in Nigeria that I still talk to. And they've just helped me get through a lot of problems. So yeah.
Wait, Chi, can you give an NSA plug really quickly? Like share your socials.
Yeah. So follow us on Instagram at nsa.uottawa, and then follow us on TikTok at nsa.uottawa. And we have an event, our first ever event, coming up in about 2 weeks or like 13 days. And it's going to be called the Chop Life Social Night. And it is a mingle night, because that's exactly what we're going for here, this sense of community. We want people to get to know each other, to be close. And I'm me personally, I'm not just spreading it to people I know. Like, the moment I am walking around school and I hear a Nigerian accent, I will turn to you and I'm like, oh, do you want to join the NSA? Like, I'm doing very random information spreading. So I do want, it's going to be a mingle night. People are going to eat food, play games, drink, talk, and hopefully at least one person will leave there with a new friend, and then we'll know we just have to start from somewhere. So yeah, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at nsa.uottawa, and come to our event. It's on our Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you. That's amazing. I love finding about everything that you're doing, and it sounds so wonderful. And I feel like it's especially when we are doing. Oh, Okay, come back. It's especially when we are creating all of those initiative and opportunities for the student that then we realize that, oh, I wasn't alone, like feeling that way. And like, that's something that we all kind of feel. So thank you for all of your work. Mika, do you have anything else to add before we close the episode?
No, just that I love Chi, and she's so like innovative, and whenever I listen to her, I'm like, wow, she's gonna do great things in this life. But that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening to today's podcast episode. Thank you so much to our honorable guest, Che, for being here today and for taking the time to share your personal experiences and everything that you've been up to here. It's just amazing to get to know you and all of your work. And I wish you the best with your events.
Thank you.
Thank you, and take care, everyone. See you the next time. Bye.
Bye.